Have you ever wondered what the world will look like in 2025? Forget flying cars for a second. The real drama, the one that will define our future, is happening right now. And it's a high-stakes economic showdown between the two biggest players on the global stage, China and the United States. This isn't just about tariffs or trade deals anymore. This is a new kind of war, fought with silicon chips, digital currencies, and global influence. What's happening behind the closed doors of Washington and Beijing will directly impact your wallet, your job, and the technology you use every single day. So, buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the economic battle that will shape 2025 and beyond. For decades, the global economy operated on a pretty simple premise. The United States was the undisputed leader. But that's changing, and it's changing fast. China's meteoric rise from a manufacturing hub to a technological powerhouse has completely redrawn the map. We're no longer talking about a simple rivalry. We're talking about two fundamentally different economic models competing for dominance. On one side, you have the US, championing free market capitalism and democratic ideals. On the other, you have China, with its state-led capitalism and a long-term strategic vision. The friction between these two giants is creating shockwaves across the globe, and 2025 is shaping up to be a critical turning point. Let's break down the main battlegrounds. First, and most importantly, is technology. The fight over semiconductors, or chips, is the absolute heart of this conflict. Think of chips as the brains behind everything, from your smartphone and your car to advanced military hardware and artificial intelligence. The US has long held a lead in designing these crucial components, but it got a wake-up call when it realized how much of the actual manufacturing had moved to Asia, particularly Taiwan. In response, Washington has unleashed a series of export controls, essentially trying to cut off China's access to the most advanced chip-making technology. This is a massive gamble. The goal is to slow down China's technological progress, especially in areas like AI and supercomputing that have military applications. China's reaction? It's pouring billions, maybe even trillions, into achieving what it calls technological self-sufficiency. It's a national crusade to build its own domestic chip industry from the ground up. Companies like Huawei, despite being hit hard by US sanctions, are at the forefront of this push, developing their own chips and operating systems. This isn't just about national pride. It's about survival. China knows that without its own tech supply chain, it will always be vulnerable to pressure from the US. By 2025, we'll have a much clearer picture of whether China's massive investment is paying off. Will they manage to close the gap with the West? Or will the US sanctions prove too difficult to overcome? The answer will have huge implications for the global tech landscape. We could be heading towards a world with two separate tech ecosystems at digital iron curtain, dividing the globe. The second major battleground is currency. The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency for nearly a century. This gives the United States immense power. It can borrow cheaply and impose powerful financial sanctions on its adversaries. But China is actively trying to challenge the dollar's dominance. It's been promoting the use of its own currency, the Yuan, in international trade, striking deals with countries like Russia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia to trade in their local currencies instead of dollars. But the real game changer is the digital yuan. China is way ahead of the US in developing a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. This isn't like Bitcoin, it's a state-controlled digital version of their cash. Why does this matter? A widely adopted digital yuan could allow China and its partners to bypass the US-controlled global financial system. It would make US sanctions much less effective and could slowly chip away at the dollar's status. Imagine a world where major oil trades are settled in digital yuan instead of dollars. That would be a seismic shift in global power. By 2025, China's digital currency will likely be more integrated into its economy and potentially being used in cross-border pilot programs. The US is playing catch-up, still debating the pros and cons of a digital dollar. The race to define the future of money is on, and the outcome is far from certain. The third front in this economic war is global influence, particularly through infrastructure and trade. You've probably heard of China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRICS. It's a colossal project to fund and build roads, ports, railways, and bridges across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Critics in the West often call it debt trap diplomacy, arguing that China saddles developing countries with unsustainable loans to gain strategic leverage. But for many of those nations, the BRI offers much-needed investment that they can't get from anywhere else. It's China's way of building a new network of economic and political partners, creating a sphere of influence that rivals the one led by the US. The US and its allies are trying to counter this. They've launched their own initiatives, like the Build Back Better World Partnership, promising to fund high-quality, transparent infrastructure projects. But they face a tough challenge. China is often faster, less bureaucratic, and attaches fewer political strings to its investments. This competition for influence is playing out across the developing world. By 2025, we'll see which model is proving more attractive. Will countries lean towards China's no-nonsense approach, or will they prefer the values-based, though often slower, alternative offered by the West? The loyalties being forged today will determine the geopolitical alignments of tomorrow. So, what does all this mean for us? This isn't some abstract geopolitical chess game. The consequences will be very real. First, get ready for more supply chain disruptions. The push for decoupling or de-risking means companies are rethinking where they make their products. This could lead to higher prices for consumers as production moves to more expensive locations. Your next smartphone or laptop might cost more because of decisions made in this economic conflict. Second, expect a splintering of the internet and technology standards. You might need different apps, different hardware, depending on which tech block you're in. The open, global internet we've known for decades could become a thing of the past. Finally, there's the impact on the global economy. This rivalry creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is bad for business. It can slow down investment, hinder innovation, and increase the risk of a global recession. The world has benefited immensely from decades of relative cooperation between the US and China. A new era of intense competition could put that prosperity at risk. The transition will be rocky, and we'll all feel the bumps along the way. But it's not all doom and gloom. Competition can also spur innovation. The space race between the US and the Soviet Union gave us countless technological breakthroughs. This new US-China rivalry could accelerate progress in areas like green energy, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology as both sides race to gain an edge. For example, both countries are investing heavily in renewable technologies like solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicles. This competition could speed up our transition away from fossil fuels, which would be a huge win for the entire planet. The pressure to innovate is immense, and that could unlock solutions to some of the world's biggest challenges. As we look towards 2025, it's clear that the world is being reshaped. The era of US unipolarity is over, and we are entering a new, more complex and competitive bipolar or multipolar world. The economic war between the US and China isn't about a single, decisive battle. It's a long-term struggle for technological supremacy, financial power, and global influence. The decisions made in the next year will set the stage for the next decade. Will this rivalry lead to a dangerous and fragmented world, or will it push both nations, and the rest of us, towards a new era of innovation and progress? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, 2025 will be a year to watch. The future is being written right now, in the language of chips, currency, and trade. Thanks for watching. This is a massive and constantly evolving topic, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which battleground do you think is the most important? Let me know. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. See you in the next one.